Welcome to the Conservation Chronicles, the podcast for the Wildlife Trust for Lancashire, Greater Manchester and North Merseyside, where we share inspiring stories about how nature is connecting with community and how they can work positively together. I'm really excited about this episode today because we are coming to you from our greenhouse project at Witton Park in Blackburn. This is such an amazing project and what a gorgeous location we have here as well. So we're going to be diving into the history of the project and everything in between and how it's become such a transformative space for the community as well. So I'd like to say a very warm welcome to Andy Mather, who is our Senior Engagement and Wellbeing Officer. Welcome, Andy.
Very much.
So start us off. Where are we? Try and paint a picture of what we can see around us because there is a lot to see here today. There
is. So we are in the greenhouse project, which is in Witton Country Park, which is in the town of Blackburn in the county of Lancashire. And where we are is in one of four. We have four double greenhouses off a central run and a little one at the top. And this is what we call our community greenhouse. So we have a lot of fruit trees in here. There's a fig tree just behind us. And there's an apricot there. There's a peach. There's a nectarine over there. There's a banana, some grapevines, a bay tree. Oh, I could keep going. A lot of plants in here.
It's great. It feels like such a little haven that feels quite tucked away in the park, and it's just here and you come in and it's amazing.
Yeah, it's tucked away because it's within the walls of an old walled garden. So the Witton Country Park used to be the private estate of the Fielden family back in the day, 200 years ago. So it was a country estate. And then like a lot of those places, they had a walled garden. So that was where the greenhouses was where their kitchen garden was, their vegetable garden. So there's a massive wall all around it. So even a lot of people I know in Blackburn, they'll say, I'll tell them about the greenhouses and they'll go, there's no greenhouses in Witton Park. And they go, what are you talking about? And I'll say, oh, they're there. So they're quite hidden away.
Yeah.
Thanks to that wall, really.
Yeah. I mean, this space has been here a long time. I believe this space used to be full of asbestos and was abandoned for a long time. And now it's thriving. It's so beautiful. So can you tell us a little bit about the history of it and how you came to get involved with it as well?
Yeah. So where to start on that? So I been working for the Wildlife Trust for nearly 10 years. And when I started with the Wildlife Trust, they were just venturing into a new thing for them. So the Wildlife Trust obviously is environmental charity. The traditional work of the Trust was conservation work, managing nature reserves, environmental campaigning. But obviously they're always engaged with volunteers. But in 2000 and oh my gosh, when was that? So 10 years ago, 2015, 2016, something like that. They started a new project called My Place, and that was in collaboration with the Lancashire Care Foundation Trust Mental Health Services. So it was a lottery-funded 5-year programme, and the ethos of the programme was that lo and behold, being in nature is good for you. Basically, to cut a long story short, and that we were offering young people, especially at that time, activities in nature as a way to improve people's well-being. So it might be young people experiencing poor mental health, or risk of poor mental health within mental health services, or within services of organisations that were supporting them because of what was happening in their lives at the time. They would refer to us. We would do bushcraft activities, wildlife walks, conservation work, growing, mindfulness as a way to improve well-being. And I used to be the Blackburn with Darwin project officer for that. And one of the places I used to deliver that was in Myerscough College, which is just next door to here, in the old stables of the country house. And when I was there, I used to look through this slit in this door. And I was like, what's down there? And there was this huge complex of abandoned greenhouses. So when the council bought the public park in the 50s, they turned it into a public park and they built these greenhouses in the 70s as a place to grow the bedding plants for the parks and gardens all around Blackburn. So when you go into your park, down the street, you see all these nice flowers, they used to grow them here. So all the greenhouses at that time had aluminium frames, and on top of the aluminium frames was asbestos. And on top of that, they used to grow plants for the parks and gardens. And then in 2009, it was abandoned. So when I started to peer through that bit of glass and look around, it was a mess. Obviously, it was quite a strange thing. There was a copy of Automart and an empty mug from 2009, and it was like someone going, right, that's it, everybody, out you go. And it was like, what's happened here? It was a really weird scene, really. And then the more I started to investigate what was this space, and then I got the key for that door and I wandered around, I was like, oh my God. And it was obviously a big mess, but the huge potential was enormous, obviously. And then my imagination starts ticking over. And here we are now, yeah.
Oh my God, it's such an amazing story of you just kind of seeing that and thinking, that could have so much potential. So talk me through why you felt like you needed to do something with it and how you kind of moved that from an idea to we're actually getting going somewhere now.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, to me, it was a very obvious thing, as you can see from the structures here, even though it was a mess, the structures were pretty much intact. Because of the wall around it, most of the glass was intact. And it's just quite, for a town like Blackburn to have a resource like this and not use it, it just seemed wrong to me. And when I showed it to people, they felt the same. It's just like, oh my God, it was so wrong. And the council had tried to rent it out as a commercial venture, but they didn't have any takers essentially. But I just saw the potential. And obviously, because we'd been doing those activities for 5 years, we really came to a really strong belief what the power of nature, really, and the power of nature for the community and for a wide breadth of people, and what could be done in this space. Because some of the problems that we experienced as well when we were delivering that program was what happens when it rains, which it does in Blackburn. So the greenhouses, you could grow some really funky stuff. If it was raining, you could come inside, and there was this huge space. There was all like these blank sheets of paper. So it was really, to me, it was like, we've got, this needs to happen. And so we approached the council. I approached my manager at the time, and we identified some funding from Sports England. So Sports England at the time were looking to fund projects that would get people more physically active. So usually that would mean gyms, leisure centres, sports clubs. But we'd been working for 5 years. We knew there's a lot of people out there in our society who won't ever join a gym, go to a leisure centre, find those places quite anxiety-provoking places. But nature is accessible to all emotionally. It's a very non-judgmental thing, and so people feel comfortable in nature. When often to go to a college or a workplace or a public place like a leisure centre, it just seems too much. So a lot of the people that we've been working with at some level, we experience some anxiety, but there's something about the natural world which means that first step into getting out of the house, being with other people in that context was more realistic and achievable.
I think it's such a great in for people, like you were saying, who wouldn't go down what you think are the traditional routes. And I understand a lot of the volunteers here, which you have a lot of and have been here for many years now, are really passionate about the mental and physical benefits that being out here and being physical have on them. So what do some of the volunteers say to you about how it's changed their lives?
So I think a lot of the volunteers, some of them would use the word family. It's a strong word to use, but they will say that. And I think when I look at a lot of the volunteers, I mean, we have people come here for a wide variety of reasons. And when it's no longer, I have to say, it's no longer a young person's project. We have people of all ages, backgrounds, classes, ethnicities, religions, all that stuff. It overrides all that. So we really overarch all that stuff. Because when you did dealing with nature and food, because we've got food as well, it just appeals to everybody, really. So I think people have a great sense of belonging. And I think we live in a world where people can be quite isolated. And as much as people love nature and love growing food, growing herbs, and there's a real need where people say, I've always wanted to grow stuff, I just don't know how to do it. And people want to feel empowered to do that. So that's one really big thing. so that's one thing to talk about. But the other thing to talk about is the fact that people want to feel a part of something, want to feel at home, want to feel that they can have another person to have a laugh with, have a cup of tea with, have a cry with, feel that they belong and can contribute and are worthwhile. So the other great thing is that there's such a breadth of stuff needs doing here. Some of the jobs that need doing are very physical jobs, but other ones are very, very delicate. And so everybody can contribute. And there's no tokenism here. The jobs that people do need doing. So everybody has contributed.
It's amazing. You talk about the whole cycle of all the different jobs that people are doing as well. And we've touched on the fruit and veg that are being grown here. I wanted to kind of move into some of the events as well, because you hold the famous in Lancashire, the equinox and the solstice events at the start of every season, which I've been to, and they are some of the highlights of my year. So people come on the first day of the season-ish and celebrate bringing the new season in. And there's always so many people here bringing a huge buffet, people from all over the world bringing food from their culture as well, and there's just some amazing food and music and that sort of thing. So why do you think that those types of events really resonate with people?
It's the feeling of togetherness. I think there's such a lovely atmosphere on those events, and when you look at it, think, oh, why does it work so well? And people just say, oh, that was amazing, and it is amazing. When sometimes I'm very busy here, and sometimes I've got my head down. I'm just on with what needs they're doing. But occasionally on those events, I can stand back and look and think, oh yeah, it's pretty cool. It's lovely. There's a loveliness about it, and it's just simple ingredients, nature, homemade food, live music, some really nice local musicians in a nice place, and all people feeling welcome. And that's it. It's not a rocket science, it's not a difficult thing, but sometimes there's not a lot of that about. So when people actually go out and experience that, and experience some eating something that somebody's made with a lot of love, and listen to some local music, sitting among some trees, they go, well, it just chills them out and they just really enjoy it. Yeah.
It's amazing that you've just got to this point where there's so many people that it ends up being sold out every time now.
That is true.
Which is incredible. But thinking back to starting up, and I guess modern day now as well, what sort of challenges have you faced with this? Whether it be, volunteers, kind of convincing internally that it's a project worth doing, or longevity or anything like that. What are some of the challenges?
Well, some of the challenges are, in fact, this very greenhouse, when we took out the asbestos down the side here, this is before we'd started clearing the outside. That's another story, all the outside areas. But when we took out the asbestos along this side here, it uncovered the fact that wall was collapsing and it was sitting at an angle, and which hadn't been evident because the asbestos was essentially covering it up. So that was like, oh my God, what's going to happen here? Essentially this whole structure had gone and pushed that wall over, not entirely, so it was standing, but and that's also happened over there. So the rivers in some of the struts we think have been corroding, so they need a replacing, and we were dependent upon the council who own the buildings to repair it, and they did. So that was a squeaky moment. Funding is the biggest obstacle. We like to have the greenhouse project as essentially a source of inspiration and resources and encouragement for individuals and also other community groups. So we have like a bit of an outreach program. We go to them, they come here, because a lot of people and organisations want to grow stuff, want to connect with nature, but don't know how to do it because they've been brought up, as we all have, in a world that's quite disconnected with nature and disconnected with food growing. So people have been disempowered and need that encouragement, need that knowledge. So we want to go out and we do go out and we do support other organisations. But in order to do that properly, we need money. So that is is a problem. We have a huge problem in the winter that we have, because we have a lot of elderly people and people with disabilities that come here. And if you can't do physical work that'll keep you warm, these greenhouses, I mean, they're like Jamaica in summer, but they're like the Arctic in the winter.
Yeah,
so,
I remember it being quite cold during the equinox
really
event. We were
here.
sat with blankets.
That's right.
It was, cold.
So we don't have a warm place for people to be. So we have people who come here every week of the year. There's a couple of individuals I'm thinking of, but after an hour, they just get cold because they can't do physical work. I'm talking about older people with physical health conditions. That makes that quite difficult. And after about an hour and a half, I've got to go, Andy, I'm too cold. So what we'd really like is to get a warm space and it's also, it's an opportunity. We could use some environmental building techniques to demonstrate them and build a structure outside which we could heat. We could use our logs. We have seasoned ash logs here that we produce, that we sell to raise some funds. One of our volunteers, actually, who has been with us now about 9 months, he came to us. He was in drug and alcohol rehab. And I'd found a load of stones ages ago, and I was looking for a person who could do some dry stone walling. And I kept asking, is there a bit of dry stone walling? Nobody. And so the stones were sat there for ages. And my phone goes one day, and this fella goes, "Oh, is this Andy?" I said, "Yeah." And then long story short, he's in a rehab. He needed something to do, really, to focus him. And he'd worked on building sites for 20, 30 years. So I said, "Oh, what sort of stuff can you do?" He said, "Oh, dry stone walling, flagging, that sort of stuff." I said, "Oh, okay." Anyway, he's come down here and he's made a beautiful dry stone wall, beautiful bench outside in the area outside. And he's currently started work on the outdoor kitchen, which he's doing a fantastic job. So as well as growing all this food, sometimes people... we share recipes, talk about food, but are also a bit uncertain about what to do with some of the stuff that we grow here. So we want to sort of do an outdoor kitchen to demonstrate that. So he's building that, and we're supporting him to set up an enterprise where he can support other fellas in rehab, in recovery from drug and alcohol addiction, to acquire building skills, and in the process of that, help us construct the outdoor kitchen, maybe do some pointing in the walls and stuff. So usual, to answer your question, money is a problem.
Yes, that is an answer that we hear quite frequently. Yes. But, it sounds like there's so much ambition and so many exciting things that are going to happen here as well. Just want to touch on what you said there about, people from so many different backgrounds getting involved, because sometimes there's the sort of stereotype that people who are coming into conservation or volunteering might be of an older white demographic, but you have such a diverse range of people that come here from all different ages, all different backgrounds. Why do you think that is?
I think that is because we have really good relationships with organisations across the town that work with different demographics of people. And that, what I was saying earlier on about working with nature, it overrides all that stuff. But because we have worked with kids who are, young people's homelessness organisations, Lancashire Women, Age UK, the carers, the drug and alcohol rehab community, older Asian ladies walking groups, madrasas. I mean, and once we develop good relationships and they see what we deliver and that it touches their people, which it will do because it'll touch everybody. And people, people have faith in us to have competence, and we get people here. Once we get people here, they go, "Oh, that's nice, isn't it?" You can send an email or send a flyer, but it's when people come here. So we try to get people here and say, "Look at this," and then so they'll see. And when they come down, they'll see all the different people here, but they'll also see something and think, "Oh, this is nice. It's just a nice place, isn't it?" We see it. It's nice, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. And just to touch back on that, in 2023, this project specifically won the Dame Mary Smeaton Award, which recognises a wildlife trust that has a project that's made an outstanding difference to equality, diversity and inclusion. So what is it that you think really made that stood out to the award body?
Probably what you said, really, about the level of diversity here. You know, it's. I mean, when people come down, I mean, it's we just like we see people as people, really. But we do live in a community that is quite divided at times and segregated, and this activity is for these people, this activity is for these people, this demographic or this social class. But we do override all of that, and we get people together. And when people are together, eating together, working, you know, spending a couple of hours sowing seeds and or doing some art or doing something physical together, they'll realise that the things that unify them and the things that make them separate from each other really sort of melt away. So probably that I would say. Yeah.
Oh,
it's a simple ingredient,
yes,
really.
Keep it simple.
Yeah,
It's best.
I think so.
If anyone is listening to this right now and thinks, this is amazing, I would love to get involved in that, what are some of the ways that people can get involved?
So anybody can be referred or refer themselves to our project. We have what's called a nature and wellbeing session on a Monday. That's a couple of hours. And for a lot of people, that's their first step onto the project. So that is a small group, is supported group. So in that session, people will generally do the same activity, and then people will stay on a session for about 12 weeks. And after 12 weeks, they'll be offered the opportunity to come and join our volunteer drop-ins. And so they're 5 hours on a Tuesday, 5 hours on a Thursday. We also do a community walk once a month. We go from here and explore the wider country park. But there is the Greenhouse Project webpage. There is essentially, to answer your question, there's a link. So as a refer to us. So, and again, I have to state that it's not a project that's just designed for people who have additional needs or experiencing poor mental health. It's a project open for everybody. People come down for loads of different reasons. We have quite a lot of bereaved people coming down who are experiencing that and experiencing living alone, again, needing that contact. Or retired people who want to give back and come down here and think this is great. We have loads of stuff that needs doing in terms of, we have people, a retired engineer who helps us with some of the mechanical stuff. We have people down on the wood workshop, because we've got a wood workshop in the bottom. There's a guy who's there showing people how to use some basic woodworking skills. He does stool making workshops. We have artists coming down here. So if you're an artist and you want to come down, we have opportunities for artists to deliver, especially if it's a nature-based art activity. So we do that as well. Or if you're part of an organisation that thinks we want some support to go out and explore the green spaces locally, how can we use our piece of the earth, our bit of land, to more connect with the natural world, and you need some support with that, we can bring you down here, show you what's possible, go out to you, support you to do that. There might be a bit of a charge for that service, but anybody, as an individual comes down, there is no charge for that.
Right. I just want to pick up on what you were saying there about people who might be going through bereavement, which can be a really isolating time. Yeah. When we had a conversation before this, we were talking about how you give people a tour round when they first get here. Yeah. And some people can get really emotional seeing a space like this and feeling that potential to connect with people. So what are the typical responses that you get from people who might be going through something like that?
Yeah, I mean, there's certain individuals who come down, and when they're first down, they've been very emotional, and just experiencing a huge loss, like they've lost a limb. These people in their 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s who've lost a partner who they've been with for years. So firstly, they meet other people in that situation, which is a tremendous source of support And there's a lot of peer support goes on as the project evolved. I think when the first sort of 12 months, it was very much like Andy. Whereas now people they feel part of it. They've made those relationships and they support each other. And I think it gives people a chance to, I suppose one of the basis of the ecotherapy ethos is the fact that focusing on an activity. So rather than sitting with a counsellor, not that there's anything wrong with sitting with a counsellor, but it's actually having something to focus on with a different person or by yourself. Some people like to work by themselves, or being with somebody else that isn't necessarily focusing on that source of pain that somebody's experiencing at that time. But it allows them, when they are ready, to actually share stuff at their own speed, but there's no pressure to do so, because the evident immediate source is this activity that you're doing. But it's also a really innately positive thing, because if you're sowing a seed or tending something that's alive, you're nurturing something. There's something innately positive about watching something grow, and you're contributing to that. And the people who've been coming here for years now, or even each season. I mean, you yourself, you haven't been here for a while, and then you come down and you think, wow, look at this place.
It looks so different every time I come here.
Every time. So people are investing in that, and they can see that, and there's a real positivity, and that people have played a role in that. But if you've ever, people listen to this, if you've never got a seed and sowed it, and then watching it germinate, it just pokes its head up. There's something innately magical about that, and there's something, I think it's magic every year.
Yeah, I love that metaphor of something beautiful growing out of something that can be quite painful. Yeah. I think it does what it says on the tin.
Yeah.
And I love that it's this alternative way of, we were talking about potentially people thinking, go to the gym, go to a counselling session, and people can do this at their own pace, in their own way. There's no pressure. And again, it's that community aspect of it as well, which I love so much.
It's a different form of fitness. We have people coming down here. There's a group who, there's a couple of groups who do exercise out in the gym, but we've encouraged them to come here. They've wheelbarrowed a load of wood chip for us. There's other people who say they were on painkillers, or they were having to use crutches, who were not having to do so as much.
Wow.
Who were saying, it's keeping them fit, because it does keep you fit. Doing the stuff here keeps you fit at whatever level that you're engaging with it. And also is like cultural identity. I think their relationship with nature can really form part of our cultural identity. We can be really conscious of the seasons, but also of our sort of culinary and natural heritage. So we've got loads of heritage Lancastrian apple trees are planted against the back wall, back there, partly supported by the Soil Association. And we've got a load of, as well as being like, there's apricots here and figs, which obviously we can grow under glass in a greenhouse. But outside, we've got loads of traditional Lancastrian stuff. We've got a load of raspberries and strawberries and rhubarb and blackcurrants, and connecting people with those, and also introducing them to people who've lived here for years. Often, a lot of the older Asian ladies who come down, they've lived in Lancashire longer than I have, because they arrived in the late 60s, very early 70s. But have lived in, quite urban, and, they've worked long hours, and a lot of them came from farming backgrounds, but have not had a lot of opportunities to explore green spaces in Blackburn, in Lancashire, or got to know some of the native plants. So we're able to share that as well, which is it's fantastic. And they share a lot of the stuff that they've grown, or childhood memories of the farms that they were brought up in Gujarat or part of Africa as well. So there's a lot of reminiscing goes on, which is very nice.
Yeah, and so you talk about growing the food. I believe that you can eat them at events if you come here, can't you? Are they on display, or do you do like cooking with them or something?
The food that we grow here?
Yes.
Yeah, so, what happens to the food that we grow here, the volunteers basically have our first dibs on it. In fact, if you were here 2 weeks ago, these 2 apricot trees were just rammed with apricots. And there was a volunteer session yesterday, and I see they've gone through it like a herd of locusts and stripped these apricots. But then I get messages saying, I'm making some, I can't remember what it was now, it was something quite funky they were doing with some apricots. I can't remember now. But some of the other plants, there's a lady called Fatima who'll make loads of like really cool chutneys, and then she'll bring them the following week for everybody else to share, and loads of different recipes. Or we'll just support each other to sort of think, okay, have a go with it. There's Yvonne made. I'm just looking at the horseradish plant over there. Yvonne made a horseradish sauce from our horseradish last year.
They're huge.
They are huge. They're very nice plants, actually, although they will spread, so be careful where you plant.
Better get eating them.
Yeah,
Better get eating them. It's just an excuse.
There you go. It's quite a plant.
So just to go back as well to, you were saying the 12-week Monday sessions, and then people have the opportunity to volunteer after.
Absolutely.
What's the retention rate like? Do a lot of people decide that they love it so much that they got to stay?
Absolutely. In fact, what we had to do was, because in the early days, people were coming on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but we've had to say to people that you have to choose a Tuesday or a Thursday, because just the amount of people that we're having on those groups. And so the attendance is great. We don't really have to go and scream and shout for recruitment, because we have, especially as time's gone on, word of mouth is a powerful tool. And the organisations that come here, people rent spaces in here as well. I have to say that it's a bit of a marketing opportunity. So this space in here is rented out by community groups and people who want to use it. We've done wellbeing sessions for organisations locally. The GP up the road brought his staff, and we did a wellbeing session for his staff. Because, like I say, it doesn't matter if you're not experiencing poor mental or physical health. You have a physical and a mental health. So everybody has to cater for their physical and mental health. So we basically want to introduce the natural world and all the wide-ranging and activities surrounding it. I mean, sometimes we'll just go and sit in the field over there on a piece of carpet and just be still and silent for a bit, and it's amazing how many people just really like doing that. Or we've got traditional skills as well in the workshop. We've got a draw knife and shave horses, which are really traditional tools to work wood with. So if you're more interested in woodworking than getting your hands dirty, then there's those opportunities as well.
So thinking about the 3 to 5 year vision of here, I know you've already talked about some ambitions that you've got, but if it was, you had complete free reign, what is it that you'd want to do in the next few years?
Well, we'd certainly secure the warm hub would be the number one, because we're looking at another winter. That's quite an immediate thing, really, I suppose, even though it's July now. Winter happens. I can see it coming towards me. So we need that. Get the outdoor kitchen going. And also, really, well, two things really is expand our capacity to reach more organisations and more parts of the town. Because as much as we do, we really do touch a lot of people. There's 150,000 people living in Blackburn with Darwin, and that's a lot of people who are nature deprived. It's amazing how many people haven't got that knowledge of the seasons, and we'd love to be able to have greater capacity to go out. And the other thing I'd like to do is, hopefully we've shown, we're in a park here. And what I really think is that what we're trying to do is reassess and reevaluate what role a park can play for a community, what a role a park can play for education, for health, for environment, and the interrelationship between all those things. So it's not just a place to come down, have an ice cream, kick a football, push your pram about, have a wee and go home. There's loads of ways in which we can use a park and use a green space to form community. We live not just in a nature-deprived world, but we have a community-deprived world. So the capacity for a park to bring people together, we have demonstrated, hopefully, is really high. So I would love really to see this duplicated in other parks across Blackburn and Darwin, Lancashire, the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And, one of the challenges that you've just kind of picks up on is the amount of people that there are here locally that we just aren't connecting with. And one of our goals as the Wildlife Trust is to reach 1 in 4 people and get them to take actions for nature, whatever that might mean to them. But that's how you create social change and people caring about nature and having that connection to it. So how do you think that we can reach more people? How do we get over these challenges that are potentially getting in the way of that over the next few years?
Well, there's a couple of things. I mean, I suppose one is a financial thing. Certainly, I mean, we are constrained by money because time is then it equates to people equates to wages equates to money, funding, but also systemic changes. You know, if you're looking at us working with local government, working with the health authority, working with organisations who are prepared and courageous enough to take an imaginative way to make changes and change the perception of how we deliver those, how we deliver a healthy environment, a healthy community, a healthy education service, health service, and those things. So that's part of the challenge as well.
Okay. Yeah, I think, what you say is it's just capacity and it's funding. And again, it's typical of a charity, but we need to get there if we want to create that social change and that 1 in 4 and everything like that. If you would like to support our ambition to making the greenhouses as amazing as they can be, you can join as a member for the Wildlife Trust for Lancashire on our website from a few pounds per month. And we also recommend that you sign up for our newsletter so you can get monthly news about all the things that are happening across Lancashire, Greater Manchester and North Merseyside with the Wildlife Trust. I've been Lydia German, your host today on the Conservation Chronicles. I'd like to say a huge thank you to Andy for being such an amazing guest today, and we will see you on the next one.